It's Kenty Blitz time. Well, good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon, Chauncey.
Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, how you going, you? Look, I'm just wondering, have you sort of been any contact about trying to move any of those young halves on from the Roosters, or that conversation hasn't been had yet?
Nothing yet.
Nothing yet?
No news yet, but watch this space.
Watch this space. If you hear anything, let me know.
I will, my friend. Hey, you threw the cat among the pigeons yesterday by informing us that the game was looking at changing the Origin eligibility rules.
Yeah.
Gee, we've got some feedback about that.
Yeah, plenty of feedback, and I tell you what, Chimes, it's fascinating how passionate. We all know Origin's built on the passion, but just how passionate fans get and how fiercely they defend totally opposite opinions. So one's at one end, the other's at the other end, and you listen to some of the debate about it. They're all convinced they're right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So just to be clear on that, the NRL Commission right now, they're not formulating it or formalising it. But they're going through just a thought process, I suppose is the way to say it, where they're considering where they start to change the Origin eligibility, and that change will be that they allow Tier 1 nations to play, such as which are England and New Zealand, which means that's going to be a significant change in the dynamic of Origin, I believe.
It is a little bit confusing for the average league fan because you've got to actually think about how it all works to understand it.
Yeah, and just to remind people, at the moment, Tier 2 countries can play in State of Origin and then play also for their nation, which is either Samoa, Tonga, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, for example. The thing about that, though, Chimes, is the rugby league landscape's changing. The whole demographics changing. When these rules were brought in, they were basically brought in at a time when it was New South Wales versus Queensland, okay? And predominantly, there was very few Polynesian players in the competition at the time, and it was a simple rule to enforce. But with the way the game is evolving, it's no longer so simple. So it's a big question for the NRL, and it's a big headache for the NRL. They don't know the answer. They don't want to put it out there that they're considering these sorts of things because they're not quite sure where it's going to land, or even if it will land at this point. They may sit on their hands for another 12 months, even another 2 years or 3 years. They're not in a rush to get it done. What they should be in a rush to do is get it done right. That's what they need to do. But to get it right, nobody is actually clear on what the answer is.
I might have a scoop.
Here we go.
I might be able to fix this. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Now, what's your thoughts on this? So players get $30,000 a game to play Origin at the moment.
Yep.
So it's worth almost $100,000 a year.
If you play a series, yeah.
Right? That's a lot of money, especially to someone to forfeit that money to play for their homeland.
Yep.
So I know that the players and that with the support of the RLPA, want to see that number increase to as much as $70,000 a game. If players are getting $200,000 a year, I don't think the NRL is going to have any problem keeping them Origin as it is. Yeah. What do you reckon?
Well, look, I think that's certainly the case. But the issue then is that can Payne Haas play Origin? At the moment he can play Origin for New South Wales and also play Test football for Samoa, which is what we're led to believe he'll do after the Origin series. He'll declare his intent to play for Samoa at the end of the year in the Pacific Championships, rather than go and play for Australia when they tour England for the Kangaroo Tour.
Yeah. If they change that rule, I can't see too many players wanting to forfeit $150,000, $200,000 a year.
They won't. No, I agree with you. They won't do that. But that doesn't fix the problem, does it either? Because part of this, this whole conversation is the development of international rugby league and how they develop. And so far we've seen Samoa made the last World Cup final. Tonga beat Australia just a few years back. So they are on the growth as test playing nations.
Yep.
And we want that to continue. We want them to continue to get better. But at the same time, we've also got this. So they'll want to play for those nations, and hopefully, as their success continues, they continue to want to play for those nations. But with the Origin being there, and if they stop them playing for those nations because they've got to play for Australia, which, and just to peel it back again, Australia, New South Wales and Queensland have been playing each other since 1908. Okay, so it's 17 years now that they've been playing each other. And for many reasons, for many years, it was almost a possibles, probables for Test selection to play for Australia. The importance of the game was to play well to get picked for Australia. Now, Origin, for whatever reason, has just become its own beast, and it's got bigger, and it's become the testing ground for a player and how he could handle the rigours and the top level of rugby league. Part of that was because of the crumbling of the international teams, England particularly, but New Zealand get there and thereabouts. They're up and down a little bit. They're not quite so consistent.
What if they had to increase the Australian test money to say $50,000 a test? The Pacific nations can't pay that.
Yeah, but what you'll get accused of there, though, look, it's valid. What you'll get accused of there, though, is attacking the international footy, the growth of international footy. Now, and let's be fair, the charter of the Australian Rugby League Commission is not to grow international footy. Right. That's the International Rugby League's job to do that. But so the Commission, on one respect, shouldn't have to consider that. But secondly, they actually do, because they care about the growth of the game, and they see that if the game continues to grow, there'll be a bigger reward at the end for everybody. And this is all part of it's a real question that needs to be resolved, Chimes, because the other part to it is this, and I've said this for years, nobody knows what the magic dust is over Origin. Yeah, AFL started their own Origin series, I think it was 1977. Not a series, they started playing the odd Origin game, which was Victoria against West Australia and South Australia. But by 1993, it was dead. Okay? Yeah. It was the people had lost interest in it. The players didn't really buy into the whole scheme. Origin took off the night Artie Beetson whacked some chalk on his chest and came out, and everyone just went, whoa. You know what I mean? And suddenly it was a different game. Chris Close tells this great story of as a young 20-year-old kid in his Origin dressing room, and Arthur Beetson, the legend, comes up next to him and just pulls out his gear and starts getting dressed. And when he's got his everything on, he just pulls out some Vicks and just gets this big globule of Vicks, sticks up one nostril, sticks up the next, gets the powder on his chest. And he thought, this guy's coming for war. And as a young, impressionable State of Origin player, that's what it was to them. And that's the side with Chris Close, Mal Meninga, Wally Lewis. They're all young kids. And they came out and they bought into it. Artie Beetson sold the dream. They bought the dream. But so did the crowd. And for that reason, Origin has kicked and kicked and kicked. And it now makes totally, all things considered, $150 million a year.
Yeah, it's a massive engine.
It's a lot of money. But if you sit there and you start to tinker with the formula, is there a chance that people become apathetic about it? And it becomes a little bit like the Victorian or the AFL State of Origin, where people don't quite care as much. We've already lost the biff out of Origin, which was for years a mainstay. And to be fair, it was an attraction of Origin. It was something that made Origin almost unique in itself. Now that is gone, some people have been lost to the game because of that subtle change. If you start bringing in people who, yes, want to play Origin, but don't want to play for Australia, so then you call into question their passion or their dedication or devotion to the jersey, because the jersey is a pathway to an Australian jersey. That's what it's there for.
We had one team win 8 series in a row. Again, it's indestructible, Origin, isn't it?
Well, it's under its current model, it's indestructible. But see, Chimes, for years, Origin was marketed as the best against the best. Okay, that was the way it went, and for years that was probably the truth, because Australia was the dominant rugby league playing nation. They got more competition between New South Wales and Queensland than you did with Australia versus England or Australia versus New Zealand. So that marketing ploy was correct. But the problem, if you start to tinker with it, well, let me just throw this at you there. Then after a while, people started getting a little bit saying, you know what about a game where we had Sam Burgess able to play, and Benji Marshall able to play, and Sean Johnson able to play, and some of these, James Graham able to play. So what they did was they came up with the All-Star concept, where everybody plays. But Chimes have failed to grab on.
It's fizzled somewhat, hasn't it?
Look,
It's still an important fixture, I think.
Well, it's important for different reasons though, because it's not even an all-star game now with the best against the best. Yeah. It's an Indigenous game. Okay, so because it was losing interest, players were pulling out. Players didn't really want to go out and play it. You could argue the timing of the season, all that as well. But the fact is, people lost interest in it. Players began to lose interest. The fans began to lose interest. It's now shifted. It's still battling, I think, to save interest. And it only has sort of like a local interest in it now. And if Origin starts to get even a whiff of that, where people think, you know what, I can give or take it now and not get the shits about their team losing, then it's in trouble. And can you go back? Can you peel it back?
So to keep the fire burning, what about a tri-series? It's been mentioned before. Kiwis have a team, Queensland have a team, New South Wales have a team, or we have a rest of the world team.
But see, I don't think that'll work. I think you can promote it, and I think for 1 or 2 years it might go okay. We tried a tri-series back in the Super League era, and that was basically when you could argue that the two Super League, the New South Wales and Queensland Super League teams, were close to full strength football teams as opposed to the ARL version, right? That's a good example actually, because you could argue that, and they played against New Zealand in a tri-series. But you know what? You know what caught everyone's attention? Remember, it was the ARL series. Even when they went to, was it 97? They went to play in Melbourne.
Yeah.
And it was a game where basically the New South Wales and Queensland teams weren't anywhere near as star-studded.
There was a fight, and there was
a fight. It was Hopewadi. It was Billy Moore and David Barnell on the sideline. So it was, and that was the series that caught attention. And this is again after 1995. Yeah. You look at 1995 when Queensland basically trotted out players who were out of reserve grade, but they came out and somehow won the series, and it now lives in Origin folklore. Yeah. And so it's not the players. That tells me it's not the players, the quality of the players that makes the game always. It's the passion, it's the aggression, it's the theatre of the whole thing. You're 100% right. So this is what the NRL has got to consider, that they're not publicising it.
Time capsule, 25 years' time. Is Origin the same as we know it?
No, I don't think so, because I think they'll fold. Right. I think they'll fold. I think the way the world, with like it is with most things, we'll just try to keep everybody happy, and everybody will get a ribbon, and we'll move on. But the danger for the NRL, normally I'd say it's a no-brainer. The NRL will definitely do it.
So will it prosper?
But no, I don't think it will. Yeah. That's why I don't think it will.
So who makes these decisions? Is there a think tank?
Well, the commission will. It'll begin with them. They will sort of start to canvass opinions. They may get a committee together to try and look at it and do all the. They'll have. I'd say they'll have Trodden on it. They'll have Icon on it. They'll have representatives of both states on there. And then they'll get other people in to try and do sort of like a cost thing. And
will they listen to the fans?
Well, I don't think the fans will give them an answer because their fans are so passionate, but they're both at opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
The fans, and I say this with full respect, I don't think the fans are always quite rational about what they say, Chimes.
Yeah, you get a good mixed response, don't you? A bit of everything, don't you?
Just read the comments below, you'll see.
A bit of hamburger with the works.
But that's the problem. But the danger is if you do interfere with it, you do change it, and it doesn't work. Because the reason, like I said, the NRL will try and, if it wasn't about money, the NRL would change it now. Yeah. But it's worth upwards of $100 million to them a year. Yeah. And if you're the bloke that took Colonel Sanders' 11 secret herbs and spices and added mustard to it and blew the whole recipe apart, you couldn't live with yourself.
So the players entitled to ask for more money?
Of course they are. I think the players get a fair whack out of it, and I think that part of what they do is to propagate their own states' funding, that the states that can then put that through all their junior football, their country football clubs and competitions and all that. So I don't think all the money generated out of Origin should go to the players. I think they get a pretty fair whack out of it. Yeah. And as the Origin money goes up, their money should go up.
Yep.
But let's remember where we came from too. Yeah. Everybody that now plays State of Origin football played junior footy somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
And so they should be getting a little bit of a nibble out of it as well.
Change of pace, mate. Nicho Hynes in the headlines again. He's the chairman of the Sharks. Steve Mace has come out and said it's bordering on un-Australian, some of the criticism he's been copying.
Yeah, what is un-Australian?
Oh, we're a different mob, aren't we? There's lots of things un-Australian.
There's lots of things we now call that are Australian. So it's hard to figure out what's un-Australian.
I'm convinced if he didn't have the $1 million price tag, if he came there from another club other than Melbourne and he was playing for 400,000, he wouldn't rate a mention.
No, he wouldn't. But that's the issue, Chimes, isn't it? The issue is he's on $1 million.
Yep. He's a marquee player.
Look,
he won the Dally M by the length of the straight.
Yeah.
And then nearly won it again the following year.
But Chimes, I get this. So this started again this week because Andrew Johns came out and just said, look, his confidence is shot.
Yeah.
And he said, look, I don't know how we fix it.
He talks about it a little bit now, Nicho, too. He acknowledges it in a way to say, I'm fine. You know, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I get that. But, and look, we're all fans of Nicho.
Yeah.
It's not like everyone's trying to bring
citizen.
him down.
Yep.
But it's the fact that, as you just pointed out, he's on $1 million. Chimes, there's not a job in Australia where you're on $1 million that does not come with some pressure and scrutiny.
Yeah,
it just does. That's the reality. The Prime Minister's on slightly more than half that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he gets more.
Yeah, and he gets nearly double what the Prime Minister gets.
Yeah. So Mace is obviously trying to protect his player.
Yeah, by putting him on the back page again.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Maybe he didn't think about that.
Yeah, well, he probably.
But he was calling for calm.
Look, he was calling for calm, and what he did. Look, I respect what he did. I just think it was slightly misguided, Mace, what he did, Steve Mace, the chairman. It was slightly misguided from the point of view that, one, he was trying to sort of settle the argument. Instead, he put him on the back page on the day that they play the Raiders.
Yeah.
And the second thing, though, is he came out with this holistic approach about, we all love rugby league. We shouldn't criticise the players. Now, mate, the one thing that has kept rugby league pumping, particularly as you know for the last 30 years, is the tribalism. And I remember the great Laurie Nichols. He says, "I don't care who wins as long as Balmain never lose." You might have used to say that. I don't care who wins as long as Balmain never lose. And the rugby league mentality is, I want my team to win and your team to lose.
Yeah.
It's not enough for as a rugby league fan for my team to win.
Yeah.
I got my team to win and your team has to lose, and that makes me happy. And that's we've got the Rabbitohs and the Roosters up this week.
Yeah.
You can't tell me they're not happy just to see the other mob get their nose rubbed in the dirt.
Because the fans are so good, they pay their way in. They pay to go and watch it, rain, hail or shine.
Yeah. And
they're amazing.
They are. And and that's why, look, I've always had the opinion too that, if you pay your ticket, you're entitled to go in and boo, and as long as you're not upsetting anyone or offending anyone or impacting on their time there, behave how you like. And part of that is enjoying your opposition, your opponent getting beat. Yeah. And the other part I'll go as far to say is watching the opposition fans just sitting there in misery when their team is getting beat. That's you'll see that this weekend. That as much enjoyment will come out of the Rabbitohs Roosters game from the winning teams watching the opposition fans just sitting in a pile of misery, filthy that the team has lost.
Yeah, I think booing's overrated as a nasty thing, isn't it? I don't think it's that big a deal, is it?
I don't think it is. But look, I'm not a cheerer either. That might surprise people, Chimes, but I'm not a cheerer. Yeah. But I don't get up and boo and all cheer, to be fair. Yeah. But I think if you want to get up and boo, go for your life. You paid your ticket. You're entitled to have the experience that you want to experience.
One person they won't be booing this week is Isaiah Yeo, 250 games. Geez, that came around quick.
It's fascinating. Didn't it sneak up on everybody? Two things come out of it. One, I'm shocked at how that he's sort of got to 200. If you'd asked me 250, I would have said he's probably sitting around a couple hundred, 200, I would have thought. Yeah. But the second thing is he's going to be the first Penrith player in over nearly. But they come in 67, so that's nearly 60 years. First Penrith player in nearly 60 years to hit 250.
Wow.
Which, Parramatta in the Ray Price hit 250 back in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, Jeff Gerard hit 300 back in the 80s. It's surprising, but well done to Isaiah. Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's putting together quite a resume.
300 years ago was wow.
Yeah.
Are we heading towards 400 being the new wow?
I think so. See, right now, the NRL every year, they have this thing where they honour the 300-game players. there's never been more 300 game players in the history of the game than what there has been in the last year by year. To be fair,
and that's why.
And so I think we've got to start looking at changing that. Cameron Smith's the only player to play 400. See, I'm old enough. You'll be old enough too to remember. Jeff Gerard was the first player to play 300 games. And it was a big deal when he did that. And he playing front row and second row too. Like
and he looked like he played every one of them.
He played every minute. You could see it in his face. Yeah. Then I think Terry Lamb was the second player. And I think it was Cliffy might have been third. Mm-hmm. Cliffy Lyons was third. But they were years apart. From Jeff Gerard to Terry Lamb to Cliff Lyons. They were years apart.
It was a milestone.
It was a milestone game. Now you're getting half a dozen to a dozen players every year that are hitting 300 games.
And we're not being critical of anyone hitting 300, by the way.
Oh no, it's still a tremendous. But do we give them a lap of honour at the or get them up on stage at the grand final day anymore, or do we say what? There's that many of you guys now. We're going to probably look at 400 might. I think 400 should be something to celebrate on grand final day. I think you probably acknowledge 350 or 300, but to get them all there, I think that just fills in the time between games. If you ask me,
I think one game's amazing.
Well, mate,
I do. I think they're all incredible. But and again, we're not trying to discredit the 300 clubbers.
It's not discredit. It's just whether, like I said,
is it because of the interchange rule?
That's a big part of it.
Why they get more games?
Well, there's blokes that played 300 games never played a full game.
All right. Plus, they're playing longer.
Well, they're playing longer.
Now there's no headshots and things like that,
well,
so they're protected more.
Yeah, but in times past, you took your life in your hands, run out of the field. The other thing too is the recovery is a big thing. Okay, the operations that like Reg Gasnier died. Well, Reg Gasnier retired because he did his anterior cruciate.
Yeah.
And back then you couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
He retired at 27 years old. Yeah. Had to finish playing because now you go in and you be with a bit of Sam Walker's out, Brandon Smith's out. They missed most of last year. They'll be back this year.
Back stronger than ever. You got time for a couple of Ask Kentys?
I think we can throw a few in.
Okay, here we go.
Let's just have one. We'll have one.
All right.
Maybe two. Depends how slow you read.
Okay, I'll do my best. It's an origin-based one from Spagey. Do you think, with the rapidly growing percentage of Polynesian players dominating the game, will Australia drop down the pecking order in the international stage, particularly if the majority of origin players don't play for Australia? Is it going to affect how we go?
Well, there is a chance, there is a chance. And that's the other thing you've got to look at origin. You imagine playing an origin series, and let me just say this. The New South Wales pack, for example, is all Tongan. The back line's all Samoan. The Queensland pack's all Samoan. The back line's all Tongan. Where's Australia going to pick their players from? So that's a long range problem. But that can happen. But I actually think in some respects, Bozo would kill me for saying this, but it's not a bad thing if Australia dropped down the rankings. It would show that the competition's there. Yeah, Australia's been dominating rugby league for 50 years.
Yeah, we need a strong international game.
It'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful. Yeah. And if they took over the 1 and 2 rankings, which it's inevitable. I think that they will.
Yeah. Hey, quick look at this weekend's games, mate. Raiders, Sharks.
Yeah, I'll let the Raiders at home there.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'll go for the Raiders at home. I think they'll bounce back. They'll be strong.
Yeah.
Panthers, Cowboys.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think Panthers.
They got Cleary back, so that's what tips me there. But Panthers are. I'm fascinated to watch this game.
Yeah. What about this one? This is the match of the round for me: the Rabbitohs and the Roosters.
Yeah, throw everything out the window. Yeah. Form means nothing. Selection means nothing. It's a local derby, and it never really does mean anything when those two play each other. They just go out and get into each other. Yeah. I've tipped the Rabbitohs on that one, based on the fact that I think Wayne will just have them in the headspace.
Mate, are the Eels going to be on toast versus the Dragons? This could be. And I don't know, call them out too early, but another loss this weekend, and they're just about cooked.
Another loss and it's all over. But I'll tell you what, I think Parramatta are a sneaky chance. I think the Dragons will win. If you give me $1, I'm putting $1 on the Dragons. Okay. But I think the Eels. There's a little bit of signs of life with the Eels. Yeah. And I reckon Dragons are a team that could sort of they're not flamboyant, and that might play into Parramatta's hands a little bit.
We've got to learn if the Dragons are going to be more consistent, I think.
Yeah.
I think we will. What about the Titans, Dolphins? Titans can score some points.
I love the Titans. Yeah. I spoke to Des earlier this year, and he said that he changed the way they're going to attack this year.
Yeah.
They're going to play a little bit more running through the halves. The fact he's got 3 fullbacks playing half, 5'8", and fullback. sort of proves the legitimacy of that. But he's got a game plan, mate, that actually benefits those players. So I really like the Titans.
Broncos, Tigers.
I think the Broncos will smash them. I think Maguire going up against the Tigers and everything that happened there with him,
I'm ready, hey?
he will have them primed.
Yeah, right. Seagulls, Storm. Good game, this.
This is always a tough one, and Manly always get up for it. But I've tipped the Storm on this one.
And the last game, the Warriors have got the weekend off. It's the Bulldogs and the Knights, the informed Bulldogs.
Yeah, one of my mates declared the Knights to me.
Right.
He reckons it's just Bulldogs since they've lost Burton, Crichton, that they weren't quite looking like they were. Yeah. I think the Bulldogs. But, they're undefeated, so I'm going to stick with form. Yeah. But the Knights might have a little bit of a crack at it, I think.
It's an exciting round. Very chewy today. Enjoyed it, mate.
Oh, mate, I might get you back then, eh?
Thanks, pal.